What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to talk about the new Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 drama that's been going around the internet. Now, this really has only impacted, I think, certain segments of the fan base or fake fan base or whatever you want to currently believe, right now. Look, we'll kind of nail where I stand on these things as we go. So, to explain kind of where we're at, we actually got confirmation of, what actually is going on. We got a long Twitter thread that we can kind of read debunking some of the stuff, but pretty much it was, I would say, the culture wars that go on. The anti-woke side kind of turned on the game. They were praising this game. They were pushing this game as okay, well, this is a, non-DEI, non-woke, none of that stuff. And there started to come out some reports of the game was banned in Saudi Arabia because of LGBTQ, representation and stuff. And things quickly started spiraling out of control where because you could have a same-sex relationship or whatever, the current situation was, because it was even in the game, well, now the thing is, forced DEI, forced, woke stuff, and now you can't support it. And let me make things clear. This is where I should probably lay down, what I think about all these different things. Look, I don't like calling people certain things. I think sometimes there's more depth to it that others don't really give to people at the same time. However, there are situations where I think people out themselves. And, if a girl is in a game or she's powerful, immediately the game is bad because it's woke. And it's those people, I think, you just kind of outed yourself that you just don't like women or you don't like playing as women. And look, you do what you want with your money, but when you put it online, you say it out loud, you're going to come across a certain way, right? Is having a gay character in a game immediately make the game terrible? And the answer is no, okay? But when you're into these culture wars things, you're on a slippery slope. And if one thing is kind of out of line, if there is DEI or whatever you want to say, if that's in it, you almost have to turn against the game because you're part of your little cult and stuff. Now, again, I think sometimes there can be more to it. And I don't like labeling people, especially people that kind of watch my own videos, because I think there's sometimes more to it than what people will give them credit for. But there are also people that just completely out themselves, I think, as racist, sexist, all those things. There are real people that are like that, and there are real people in the gaming industry that are like that only want it to be certain ways, and you step out of line just a little bit, you have one thing off, and suddenly you're against it. So that's kind of where I stand with it. But what's funny about this is that it's really, in my opinion, it's not a big deal. It never was. And, again, this Twitter thread, I mean, we can go through it a little bit. It basically debunks / kind of just simplifies things, right? So they say there's no unskippable cutscenes in the game. Anybody who claims otherwise never played them. That was, a rumor that you could not skip, I think, the same sex scenes, right, in the game, that you couldn't skip it. So that was just a lie, propaganda, whatever you want to say. We are not, nor ever were, banned in any country, so that one's fun. As much as I don't like forced diversity, nobody was forcing us to do anything. We are not forcing anyone to do certain things. Gay characters were already in the first game. It's an RPG. You're responsible for your decisions. If you want Henry to try a same-sex adventure, feel free. If you don't want to, you don't have to. All affairs are, and were in the first game, purely optional. The characters are perfectly aware that it was a forbidden sin. And then, at the very end, we don't want Kingdom Come Deliverance to be used as clickbait by people who didn't even play it yet. Some of them sadly turn into exactly the same narrative they pretend to be fighting against. The amount of hateful behavior is really sad, and it will damage any cause associated with it. And that last point, I think, is perfect. That says it way better than whatever I've been mumbling and rambling through this whole video. So oftentimes, right, these people talk about the choice, right? They just want choice. They don't want things forced. And look, I mean, I kind of agree with that too. If something is in the game not for the purpose of making the game better, but just to force it, or it's to push an ideology, whatever it might be, if it's there just to do it and it serves no purpose to the game, to the movie, to the TV show, get it out of there. I agree with that. That's why, maybe I've always been so in the middle that I kind of can see both sides, but that I can kind of see when they're hypocrites and when they just don't make any sense. I feel like kind of just taking a few steps back is one of the safer ways to approach it, because you can see when things kind of break down. And that last tweet is a really good example of it, right? It's okay, I think, to say, hey, I don't want things forced. I don't want it shoved down my throat. I don't want the whole game to be about this one issue that you're trying to make an issue. Maybe it's not even an issue, but you're trying to make it. All things that are somewhat reasonable, okay? The issue is, as the rest of that Twitter thread proved, well, what about the actual truth? What about just the fact that there are gay characters that makes the game suddenly bad? Well, there already were in the first game. You can do whatever you want. It's an RPG. They let you play the way that you want it. Back then, in terms of historically, like, they're not going to smile at you if they know that you're doing it, right? Like, things are going to react the way they're going to react. You're allowed to do it. And I think I saw one tweet from like Doom of like, well, you push the button. And that's exactly the case here, right? It's an RPG. There's so many ways to go about it. You choose if you want to have a same-sex thing in the game, it's because you picked it. You don't have to do that. The game never told you that you must do that. And I actually think that's one of the perfect examples. Now, look, if the game wants to tell you a story like that, it has every right to, if that's the type of game that it is. If you have a single player, Life is Strange 1 tells you the story that it's supposed to tell you, that it wants to tell you. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but like, it's gonna do its thing, and I have total respect to that. Games should be allowed to do that. But a game like this can do whatever it wants. It allows you to do whatever you want. And if you're complaining about a certain path that you can go down, well, it's just a path. You don't have to go down that path. They're not forcing you to go down that path. The game works if you don't go down that path. What's the problem? And this is where I think that last tweet, where this kind of just shines the light on these people and say, well, you're the ones who say you don't want things forced, but then you're forcing it to not be in the game whatsoever, right? If one thing is out of line, it's immediately a problem. And this happens on both sides. I talk about this so much, whether it's the culture wars, right? Like woke, anti-woke, whether it's console fanboys. The thing that's always the same about these groups of people, no matter which side they're on, is that they always will turn against each other and they'll always be hypocrites. That's one of the main things I despise about it is, well, one thing is okay if it's your side, but then if it's the same thing, it's just the other side, you suddenly freak out. And for this specific example, this is the case. These people were raising the banner of success and talking about how amazing this game was going to be. Nobody played it. These people online, these woke, anti-woke, they did not get the game yet, okay? There's no chance in hell that these anti-woke people, the Grumses of the world, there's no way they got the game, right? So they're just talking, and they can talk. They have the right to talk. But then when they go off with this rumor, well, you still haven't even played the game. So the people that are turning on it and saying, well, now suddenly, well, it's got DEI, it's forced, now the game is going to be a failure, now we can't support it. Number one, your restrictions are too tight. And number two, how do you even know what's going on? You're going based off of hearsay, you're going based off of articles and stuff, but you don't know how that affects the game. And that's something I oftentimes talk about. Like, I believe that games fail or succeed based off of a lot of things that are not the culture war stuff. It can hurt, it can help, but I don't think it ever makes a game. Personally, I mean, maybe I've just never found the perfect example, but when you talk about Dragon Age and the war that kind of happened with, say, the Veilguard, right? I think that game is the most game, in my opinion. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I think that game is the most mid game for a variety of reasons. That is not in my top 5. It's not in my top 10. There's other, you know what I'm saying? And that oftentimes happens. Like, you could maybe say it takes away from the energy that people would use to put into other things, but I generally believe a game's going to be good or bad based on other things. So for these people to turn on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and here's the thing, this is why they're not genuine. I kind of have jumped around it, but let me nail it. It was always this amazing, perfect thing to these people because it didn't have woke stuff. That's the only reason. These people don't care. At least some of these people don't care. Again, I don't want to necessarily label everybody, but oftentimes, if you guys respond, I can kind of, tell, okay, there's more to it than what I might see. But these people that say, oh, it's going to be a 10 out of 10 game, the culture wars people, they're only saying it because of the culture wars. It's only a masterpiece of a game because of the culture wars. They are not looking at the game itself. And so therefore, when the game has one thing out of line, when it suddenly becomes a woke game in one aspect, even though, I mean, for the love of God, is it really woke? When it does that, they immediately flip the switch. Again, the one constant is it's not the game itself. They don't know. They might not even play the game itself, but now it's got that one thing out of line in their culture wars, and they have to switch up on the game. And that's the hypocrite kind of nature that I talk about. That's what I laugh at and actually kind of get mad at, because these people, some of them, at least the big grifter ones that I see online, they're not genuine. And like, these are the kind of things I think that show it, where it's like they were never really, they were in it for a reason. They were in it for their war type reason. And when things switched, they switched on a dime as well. That's not genuine. That's not genuine. You can have issues with culture stuff and woke versus anti-woke, but like, to make that the only thing, to make that what you're going to live and die on, is not wise when things like this kind of happen, right? So I don't know. That's kind of my stance on it. I think it's overblown. It's insane to see. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, there's like that one website, I don't even know what it is, but there's the one site that like rates the games and like says what kind of elements, if it's like DEI safe or not. And I've looked at like people that tweet about it. I've never gone on the website myself, but I've seen like the pictures, and it's just hilarious because it like boils it down to the most like laughable thing. And again, like, maybe it does make an impact when you play it, but the people talking about it often don't actually play it to even know. Basically, I think people are two-faced too often online. That's kind of my main point. I don't think this impacts anything at the end of the day for any side. I think people that were going to get it are still going to get it. If they weren't going to get it, they're not. I don't know how many opinions that like having one thing changes, but again, I do think it outs some people, because it's like, look, if you're going to get so mad at it for this, well, number one, part of the rumor was wrong because it said it was an unskippable cutscene. Now you know that's not true. So immediately the source is kind of shady, right? That's the first thing. And then secondly, if you do it, you have chosen your path. You picked to do that, which you can. And at the same time that you can, you don't have to. You could go down a different path, but yet we're going to kind of freak out. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, people will say, oh, you fence sit. Fence sitting, or in this case, just not being so dramatic. That's what I think it is. When people say, oh, Alex, you just freaking pick a lane, just side with one side. No, because I think this can happen. I think when you pick a side and you're so loyal to your team, and then something like this happens, you look like an idiot. You look like a true, if you're going along with it. I'm not saying if you're part of the team, and things that are outside your control are outside your control. But this is why, because I oftentimes see this. I oftentimes see people that are so loyal to the crest, which I am for like the Buffalo Sabres or something, that I'll watch them lose for the rest of my life. But I'm not loyal to something that if one thing falls out of line, well, then I have to change my entire thought process. It's not genuine. The end of the day, it can all be boiled down. This 15 freaking minute video that was way too long could all be boiled down to, oftentimes the people are not genuine. And this is another example of calling out when people are just following a leader, a ideology, a path, but they're not thinking for themselves. This proves it again, and it happens all the time, and this is what happens when we're in this kind of situation. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.